Hello, everybody. Welcome back to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that's Tyler over there. And we are back to cover week 6 of the NFL. It is the conclusion of the DPI Bowl has occurred. Sunday Night Football was the DPI Bowl, and Tyler's Chiefs were victorious. We posted our instant reactions from last night, recorded in the stadium. So if you haven't checked those out, definitely give those a watch. It's super fun to be able to record in the stadium as we were both there. But we have tons of great stuff to cover and stuff coming soon. We have our dual perspective kind of day in the life video coming out on YouTube Shorts and TikTok here this week, as well as some other stuff as well. Down the pipeline, as in November, we will be traveling to Buffalo to cover Buffalo Buccaneers game for our second installation of DPI on location. So we're super excited for those things down the line. But getting right into it, Tyler, we have a ref call of the week. Where's that game happen?
So, yeah, this is in Indianapolis. It is the end of the Cardinals versus Colts game. What we're going to see is a play. It was fourth down for the Arizona Cardinals. There is not a defensive pass interference called, despite tight end Trey McBride begging the refs to call defensive pass interference. And this ended the Cardinals game. Had there been a call, it would have been first and goal Cardinals at the 1. Given the no defensive pass interference call, it was a turnover on downs, Colts ball going into victory formation. So we're going to break that down as to whether it should or should not have been defensive pass interference.
And before I play the video, I apologize. This is the best angle we could find. It's not necessarily the camera quality. It's really the lighting, because all of this play happens in the dark. But we are watching Trey McBride, number 85, here on an outbreaking route.
This is what the lighting for the broadcast looked like as well. So this isn't just some person on YouTube posting their video. This is the broadcast.
So yeah, what we're looking at here is that top of that route, this outbreaker, clearly a bunch of contact, maybe slow out of the break due to the contact. He instantly throws his hands up in the air, tries to sell it, but it does not work. He doesn't get the call. Tyler, what are we looking at here?
So, yeah, you definitely see a lot of contact, but to me, there's two reasons why the refs may not have called it, and then we can break down whether they should have or not. But number one, pause it right there. The ref is in the sun, and Trey McBride and the defender are in a very shaded area. The ref literally might have been blinded by the light, number one. Number two, Trey McBride immediately throws his hands up in the air. He falls down, and the ball kind of goes away from him. So the ref might have been seeing Trey McBride selling it a little bit too much. They may also have determined it not to be a catchable ball. All things that we're going to break down soon. If it is the case of him selling it too much, to me, it's kind of like when a catcher in baseball frames a glove but has a lot of movement. The ball might have been a strike, but because the catcher's glove moves so much, the ref gives it a ball because they think they framed it too much. That could very easily be the case here. So that's why the ref probably didn't call it, or one of those three things. So now let's break down whether he should or should not have. What are you seeing here, Zach?
So of the three things that you just mentioned, I think the biggest one is the fact that this ball looks too high. It looks to be uncatchable. However, and if that's the case, DPI should not be called. As if a ball is uncatchable, DPI is no longer in the conversation. However, I think you could make a more significant argument for an illegal contact or a defensive hold at the top of this route. I do think that there's a lot of grabbing and enough restriction right here, both hands on the hips, slows him out of the break. I think that that's enough to call illegal contact. It's certainly within the gray area. So I'm going to go with no on the DPI, but a solid maybe to yes on the illegal contact or defensive holding.
I agree. This is definitely something that looks illegal. I feel bad for Trey McBride because for me, I'm not sure if I would have called it in the moment, simply due to Trey McBride maybe overselling it. Like I said, very similar to when a catcher overdoes a frame job for a balls and strike for baseball. But I agree. There's so much contact here that I think this does go against the NFL rulebook, and I think the Cardinals should have had the ball first and goal at the 1 here.
Yeah, or at least half the distance. But to me,
Well, but a
this
foul in the end zone would have put it at the 1, even a hold.
no, it's still only half the distance.
A
It
whole,
has
a
to be.
whole distance.
Yeah, in order to get it at the 1, the only penalty that gets you there is pass interference.
Okay, gotcha.
And so
Okay.
and so the fact, because I pause it right here. This ball is way over his head. He's fully outstretched his arms here. I know he's kind of falling over, but I don't think there's a chance he makes that catch.
But
Um,
a quote unquote catchable ball, weirdly enough, isn't necessarily would he have for sure caught it. Is it in range of catchability?
that's
And I think
true.
if you take away the restriction there, it becomes a position where he would have been in range to catch it.
And that's an
But
interesting
because the
dilemma.
restriction happened way before the ball got in his range, it might look uncatchable, but it's because the restriction happened right as the ball was being thrown or right after the ball was being thrown.
Interesting. And I think that's a good point, because we'll never know if it was catchable, because we'll never know what position McBride would have been in had he not been restricted at the top of his route. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think at the very least, this should have been defensive holding. But
I do agree with you. Either way, it would have put first and goal. Maybe not at the 1, maybe it would have been the 5, but it would have been first and goal well inside the 10-yard line with about a minute. The game was over. The Colts took a knee on the very next play after the turnover on downs.
right. And that's just kind of the way these calls go sometimes. At the very end, it's always so much more scrutiny on those final, fourth down reps to end the game. But definitely a miss there. Unfortunate for the Cardinals. But moving on to our storylines of the week, obviously the biggest one, and one that we discussed just 2 weeks ago. Brian Callahan of the Tennessee Titans is no longer the head coach. He is axed, fired. And he was one of the guys we identified because of poor game management. And obviously, he has a 4-19 record as a head coach. It's one of the worst starts to a head coaching position in NFL history. And so, not surprised to see him. Are you surprised at all? Is this too soon, you think?
When you look at his 4-19 start, no, it's not too soon. I'm surprised that the Titans pulled the trigger because they've got a rookie quarterback starting.
I'm so glad you brought that
Usually,
up.
usually organizations typically, I mean, look at the Chicago Bears. They go through head coach after head coach, but they even after a few years, but they usually give the head coach a full year to work with that starting quarterback to see, all right, maybe down the tail end of the season they start to work better, and then they get something cooking for the next year. So I was surprised, and that's part of the reason why in that episode where we talked about it, I didn't put him as a coach to potentially be fired because they're starting a rookie quarterback. So I was surprised at this firing.
Yeah, I think that in any normal circumstance, if Brian Callahan is a little bit better of a coach, I think that what you say holds a lot of weight, because I was going to bring that up if you didn't. The fact that they have Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, someone who needs a lot of development, to axe him after just 6 games with that quarterback could really put a wrench in the development. But at what point do you pull the plug on someone whose game management is so horrific that it's actively causing your team and your quarterback to maybe even be stunted even more? His play calling, his timeout usage, and some of his substitutions, and the way that he gets his team prepared. This Thursday, before the game, the Titans players said, we fell flat at practice. This was one of the worst practices we've ever had. Like, you never want to hear that about your coach. And I think that was a big reason as to why he was fired, just because he was not getting his guys prepared. He was not a good leader. and he wasn't doing a good job. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe getting rid of Callahan early on in Cam Ward's career could help his development because he's not getting stunted by Callahan and his game management choices.
And excuse me, I do hope that's the case. I do like Cam Ward. I'm a big fan of him. I was a fan of him back in Miami. So I do hope that this move works out in the Titans' favor because I do want to see that organization succeed.
Right. And then moving on from Brian Callahan, we have another major piece of news. The San Francisco 49ers, who already lost Nick Bosa to a season-ending injury, just lost Fred Warner for the rest of the year. The two best players on that defense are now not going to play. But the San Francisco 49ers are leading their division and have a tiebreaker with the Rams. Obviously, we're going to talk about what Fred Warner's injury means to that defense, but we're going to talk about the future of the 49ers this season without Warner and Bosa. So I'm going to pass it to you, Tyler. What do you think this does for, like, what was Fred Warner's impact on that Niners defense, and how will he be missed in the immediate?
I mean, to me, it's very similar to when Hutchinson went down in Detroit. That's your number one guy, if not, I mean, if at least top three guy on defense that is now out when you have a ability to win the division and then go make a deep playoff run. I think the 49ers, if they don't have the depth, which I'm not sure if they do, I think they have to go get a trade. I think they have to make a trade to salvage their defense, to be honest, because this is a team that does have some good stars on offense, but they need their defense to help out that offense.
So I'm going to add some additional context because I agree. It's very similar to Hutch because when Aiden Hutchinson went down right around the same time, week 5, he was the highest graded PFF edge rusher in football at 94.4 was his grade.
I forgot it was week 5 when Hutch went down. It felt like so much later into the season.
Yeah, it's wild. It was right around here. But to put that in 94.4 is amazing. Put that into context.
Mhm.
Fred Warner's grade is 92.9. That is second out of all linebackers. It is so comparable. So I think that you really hit the nail on the head because they've already lost Nick Bosa, but I think you can manage if you have an all-pro defensive coordinator on the field like Fred Warner, literally the heart and soul of that defense. Him being gone, you're right. A trade has to be made or the season is lost, in my opinion. Especially with all the injuries they're dealing with on offense. They still don't have Brandon Ayuk back. Ricky Pearsall has been extremely banged up. And it was just revealed that Jawan Jennings, the receiver that's replacing Brandon Ayuk in the interim, is playing with 5 broken ribs right now. So the San Francisco 49ers are absolutely banged up to all almighty right now, but there's no getting Warner back, and that's such a tough blow. As he was actively in the midst of his best season per PFF. He's been an All-Pro multiple times, but he's never had a grade as high as 93, which he did this year. His highest was in 2023 with a 90. So brutal loss for the NFL and for the San Francisco 49ers. But I agree with you that they should make a trade, but what position should they make a trade for? Because they lost Nick Bosa and they lost Fred Warner. So which is more important and which is more replaceable? Is a one-of-one middle linebacker, defensive coordinator on the field? Not really many people like that exist. I think maybe it's only Fred Warner at this point. Or is it easier to go get a premier edge rusher from a failing team like Cleveland or something like that?
It's going to be a lot easier to replace the edge rusher because, like you just said, there are so few people that can play linebacker the way that Fred Warner can. And any team that has a guy like that, take the Chiefs with Nick Bolton, for example. They're not getting Nick Bolton. You can give them the earth, and the Chiefs are not giving up Nick Bolton to the 49ers right now. So I think it's going to be a lot more manageable to go get an edge rusher. It's going to be not quite as impactful, but certainly impactful. And so that's if they make a trade, then that's what I think they'll do is get an edge rusher.
Gotcha. Regardless, though, we both agree that they need to make a move.
And the linebacker is more impactful, but like I said, they're not going to be able to go get a middle linebacker like Fred Warner. They do have an ability to get an edge rusher that can fill Bosa's void.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think Bosa was quite on the same pace as Fred Warner was this year. That's not to say
Mhm.
that Nick Bosa isn't a huge impact edge rusher, but his PFF grade was an 86. That's 12th out of 170 edge rushers. Still really good. It's not number 2 and it's not the best middle linebacker season we've seen in a while.
Mhm.
But moving on to our final storyline, this is one we got to witness live and we kind of reacted to last night, but we wanted to cover in some more detail for you today. And that was the brawl at the end of Sunday Night Football with Brian Branch and Juju Smith Schuster. I'll let you take over and start or do you want me to start? Because there's some context even before that was revealed today.
So I'll start because I watched it live. So when the game ended, I'm more watching, even though I'm at the game, of course, and I'm seeing the field, I'm more watching on the screen. And on the screen is Juju and Branch face up with each other. And then I see what looked like kind of a haymaker by Branch. And then I look at the field, and then that's when the brawl really started going down. And so that was my perspective on it. And so I think it's extremely impactful to the Detroit Lions because now Brian Branch is appealing, but if he loses his appeal, you've got the Detroit Lions without two really important secondary players while facing a 5-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's a huge impact for you guys.
Yeah, it's big. No understating it. He's been really good this season. But I wanted to share some additional context, and I want to say before this, I don't condone at all what Brian Branch did. I said last night, and I will reiterate tonight, that's not what the Lions stand for. That's not what I appreciate. I don't think that there's any justifiable way to defend what Brian Branch did last night. I think it's wrong, it's foolish, and it's stupid. And if he does get suspended, if the appeal does not hold, which I think it won't, he
Mm-hmm.
will deserve it. However, the incident that incited this would be a block in the back by Juju Smith Schuster that happened in the game. And it was undoubtedly a cheap shot. I'm actually going to show it here because I have the clip and I want to show you guys just what Brian Branch said he did this because. Once again, not defending it. I'm just providing the full context of the event,
Sure.
and we can decide for ourselves. So here's the all 22 angle of the block in the back. As you can see
And I'm
right
watching this
here,
because I have not seen this yet.
right?
So okay, can you point out where we're looking?
So we are looking at Brian Branch, who is out of the play. He is playing outside
Okay.
contain for Xavier Worthy. It's a run up the middle to Kareem Hunt. So he's kind of standing here defenseless. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm going to slow it down here, comes in from the off screen here, hits him directly squarely in the back, slams him down, stands over him, and talks crap, basically. It was a dirty play, bar none. It was not flagged on the day. I think it probably should have been, but it was
With
not.
you, is it? What was your question? I'm sorry.
And then I said, but it was not. And that was something that Brian Branch expressed frustration with, especially with the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs were not flagged for a single play the entire game, which I will get to. I have some thoughts on that as well. But
Mhm.
that was the full context of the event. Once again, Brian Branch is in the wrong here, but that's why he was frustrated at the end of the game.
What was that no call block in the back? Was that fourth quarter, third quarter? What roughly when was that?
I believe that was third quarter.
Third quarter. Okay.
Second half, definitely second half.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with you. That definitely should have been a penalty. I'm not gonna defend the Chiefs on that one when they don't deserve being defended because that's not part of the play. Brian Branch was not gonna go make that tackle on Isaiah Pacheco when you've got a pack of Lions there. I do understand Brian Branch's frustration. That being said, though, if you as a superstar athlete cannot calm down from that in a quarter and a half, I don't know what's gonna calm me down.
100%.
There are going
100%.
to be calls that don't go your way. obviously, we've talked about calls that NFL fans don't like that don't get called with the Chiefs. We'll talk about that in a second. But there's also calls that, like, as a Chiefs fan, like that don't go our way. We can look at different examples from this year and last year as well. That's part of the game, unfortunately. I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but you got to be able to play through that. And not being able to play through that might cost Detroit a whole extra football game.
Right. It's certainly big. I will get to that in a little bit. I don't think it's as impactful as it could have been with what the Bucs are dealing with injury wise, but it's certainly without him on the field, the defense is much worse. But
Sure.
I'm gonna hop because that was our final storyline. I'm gonna hop straight into our Lions Chiefs recap. I'm gonna start because I think it's really topical. I'm gonna talk, if you'll allow me, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the refereeing calls because I've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter defaming this Sunday night game as a horrible example of officiating, and I wholeheartedly disagree. Wholeheartedly.
Okay.
And here's why. So the
And you're
first thing
biased towards the Lions. So
Right,
if you're saying that the officials were good,
right, and
I think that says a lot.
a lot of the discourse is coming from the Lions fans. And so I want to
Mhm.
talk directly to Lions fans that are criticizing the officials because I disagree with you guys. And here's why. The Chiefs were called for no penalties for no yards. The Chiefs, according to the officials, played a perfect game. This obviously did not happen. We just looked at an example where a no call occurred, okay? But I think that calls get missed all the time. It happens. And as NFL fans, we would prefer that unless it's a serious, egregious miss, that a flag not be thrown, then flags all over the field. When you guys watch football, would you rather watch a game where it was 12 flags to 15 flags on one team or 0 and 4? I'm always in the latter. The officials having less of an impact on the game for both teams, hopefully, means that it's a more enjoyable product. So to address the fact that the Chiefs got 0 flags and the Lions got 4, would anyone be complaining if it was 4-8, if that was the discrepancy? I don't think so. I think it's the fact that the Chiefs got 0 calls is what's getting people tripped up. But I want to cover those 4 flags the Lions got because I feel like this game could have easily been a 1 flag on the Lions, 0 flags on the Chiefs game. And let me get you to that logical conclusion. Okay. The first flag on the Lions was an illegal shift by Jared Goff. He tapped the center's butt before going in motion, did not get set, had a ball thrown to him. It took a long time, and there's some controversy about this that I think we can talk about later, but the reality is I think the call was correct. So you force the refs to call that. There's no gray area. If you establish yourself as a quarterback, go in motion, and don't get set, that's an illegal shift. You are forcing the refs to call that. It's not DPI. It's not a subjective call. It is the rules. The second one was a delay of game they took immediately after that. The clock ran out. You forced the refs to call that. So that's 2 instances of the Lions' discipline or lack thereof forcing the refs to throw a flag when they otherwise would not have if you were disciplined. It's not, oh, that's a phantom DPI. No. These are flags that you have to throw if you're an officiating crew. And the third one is a comically late hit on Patrick Mahomes by Aiden Hutchinson that results in a roughing the passer penalty. I watched the replay. You guys can go back and watch it. It is comically late. So much so that I think Patrick Mahomes mouths to Aiden Hutchinson, "What the F are you doing?" after the play, and it was completely warranted. He took 3 full strides after Mahomes got rid of the ball and slammed him to the ground. Would be called every time. If you are hitting a quarterback, doesn't matter what his name is, that late, you are forcing the refs to call a penalty on you. That's 3 plays where the Lions' discipline forced the officiating crew to call a flag. And the final flag on the Lions was a defensive pass interference on a coverage rep of Travis Kelce. And I actually disagree with this call, but it wasn't really that impactful. The Chiefs were already in control, and they were in scoring range. I think it was a bad call, but it was subjective. It was within the gray area, I think. There was contact. Travis Kelce does a great job of selling, but not overselling. He got the call. So be it. He's one of the greatest of all time at doing that. So that's 1 flag that I disagree with. The other 3, the Lions forced the refs to call on them. So if the Lions are disciplined, it's 1 flag on them to none on the Chiefs. That's a clean game from both teams. Would anybody be complaining at that? I don't think so. The flags are largely the Lions' fault. And so people complaining about the officials getting involved, the officials ruining Sunday night, the officials causing the Lions to lose are delusional. and they don't know what they're talking about. Be more disciplined and don't lose by 2 scores. And then you can complain about the officials. It's not a situation like 2023 in Dallas where the officials took a game away unjustly from a team. No. This is an undisciplined team that lost by 2 scores. This is not a blame the refs moment. That's my piece on the officiating, because I was very frustrated with the discourse after driving home from the game. Curious your thoughts.
And again, to the viewers, this is coming from a Lions fan who went to Arrowhead Stadium in his Aiden Hutchinson jersey. So I absolutely agree with you, and I want to talk about that first call that you mentioned with the illegal shift is what they called,
Right.
correct?
That's right.
With the illegal shift on Aiden Hutchinson, on Jared Goff. So there's a clip going on Twitter right now of, I believe it's Boomer Esiason, disagreeing with the officials because, to mostly paraphrase Boomer Esiason, the quarterback must go fully under center and get underneath the center's butt in order for him to have to stop before the ball is snapped.
Right.
However, there is also on Twitter dialogue of a reporter and Chris Ralsted, the official. And the official says that, to quote Craig Ralsted, that if you establish yourself as the quarterback under center, then you have to pause before the ball is snapped. And that's a big distinction between Boomer Esiason is saying you have to physically put your hands under the center, while Craig Ralsted, the official in the game who made the call, is saying you just have to be in the quarterback position, not in shotgun formation. And so based on the definition that Craig Ralsted, the official in the matter, gave, it's a correct call. He goes under center, he pauses behind the center in the quarterback position, not in shotgun formation, and then goes out, and then he does not stop even for a moment. Like that's very clear. It's not subjective. It's a rule that I had never seen before.
Same.
But based on the definition, it is a correct rule.
Okay, and I will provide
It's a
additional
correct
context.
call.
I'll provide additional context because I agree with you. Somehow we agree on one of these because we don't agree on the Dallas one. But Rule 7 of Section 4 and Article 2 and Item 3 state that it is legal for a T formation quarterback, basically just any under center quarterback.
Non-shotgun formation is the T formation. T formation is not shotgun formation.
It is legal for a T formation to go in motion, whether he has placed his hand under the center, on his knees, or on the body of the center. However, it is a false start if the action is quick or abrupt. And here's the part that we should, because that just said it was legal. Here's the part we should pay attention to. If the player fails to come to a complete stop for at least 1 full second prior to the ball being snapped, it is illegal motion. And if you look on the review, Jared Goff places his hand on center Graham Glasgow's butt, goes in motion, does not stop. That's an illegal shift by the rule book. Here's the problem that I have with the way it was called, because objectively, it's the correct call. Mm-hmm. This flag wasn't thrown until 74 seconds after the touchdown was called. And the referees on the field at the time seemingly told Dan Campbell that the call came from New York. That's what Dan Campbell said in his press conference. And Dan Campbell doesn't tend to lie about those things, or has no reason to lie about those things. Mm-hmm. He was asked about it and he said it. The problem with that is this call can't come from New York. It's not reviewable. So if New York calls down, that's the NFL breaking their own rules to overrule something on the field. If the refs missed it, the refs missed it. You can't have a call come in from New York. And so people are saying the 74 seconds that it took the refs to huddle up and make that call is because they were actually getting it from New York, and the refs told that to Dan Campbell. But later, the refs released a statement where it said, no, nothing came from New York. It was all us, because the NFL is covering up the fact that they broke their own rules to overturn this play. That's where the controversy lies, because objectively, the call's correct. And to me, it's annoying, but at the end of the day, the call's correct, and it doesn't affect the outcome of the game. The Lions were in the lead after this play. They were up 10-6. They had scored a touchdown anyway. So it's not as impactful as the Dallas game, but it is something to look at. Did the call come from New York? We'll never know.
Yeah, I agree that is a very interesting thing because you're right. Craig Ralston says because they asked Craig Ralston specifically, like, why did it take well over a minute to call? And they said that there's a lot of moving parts. We had to talk with this guy. Did he did he establish himself under center? Did he fail to get set? And he gives a couple other examples that I'm missing right now because I don't have it in front of me. But yeah, I mean, those are two very different analysis of or eyewitness assessment. Those are two very different takes. Is we huddled, it came from New York. So either this is a miscommunication thing or there is a big issue at hand.
So here's the direct quote from Dan Campbell. Quote, "It doesn't matter if I agree or disagree. They said that he never stopped. He stayed in motion. He can't stay in motion." That was that. That had no bearing on the game. We lost by 13 points. But Campbell also said, "I know it came from New York." However, Rolstead said we did not have any assistance from Kansas City or New York. So two parties are saying complete different things on whether it came from New York or not. And of course, if it did come from New York, the NFL would deny that because it's against their own rules. Once again, I agree with Dan Campbell. It doesn't matter at the end of the day.
And this is kind of my last take on it because you're right. Like this is a non-impactful call. The Chiefs scored by multiple possessions, not just 4 points that a touchdown would have given them. But did he say, I know it came from New York, or they told me it came from New York?
He says, "I know it came from New York,"
So
suggesting
that's
that.
speculation then.
Well, it's not. He says, "I know," which means that
But
he was
like,
probably told. It would be interesting to ask Dan Campbell a follow up.
but
As in,
it's no
like,
different than like talking politics at Thanksgiving, where your aunt or uncle says, "I know this is a lie from Congress," and it's
but
like,
but
well,
this is Dan Campbell we're talking. He doesn't say absolute unless he has a reason to be absolute. He's very honest
okay,
with
and
the
that's
media.
fair.
Like if this was somebody if this was a reporter or if this was me, a Lions fan, like I know that came from New York. No. I
Mhm.
feel like if Dan Campbell says he knows, he must know. And so that I'm taking it at face value because you have to take everything Dan says at face value because he means what he says.
Sure.
And so we will never know, unfortunately.
Hmm.
If Dan knows it came from New York, he must have a reason to know. And if Rolstud says it didn't come from New York, then he must have a reason for saying that, or I don't know.
So
I'm inclined to not trust refs after the way that they handled the Brad Allen, Taylor Decker controversy because the refs just lied about that. It was bad.
that's fair. That's fair. What we need all of our subscribers and listeners to subscribe, make us big media, so we can then get media credentials, so we can then ask Dan, how do you know?
A year down the line, he's like, "Are you still asking me about this?"
It's gonna be like 10 years. We're gonna blow up in like 10 years from now, and then we're gonna be like, hey Dan, 10 years ago in Kansas City, you said how do you know, Dan?
But definitely help out the channel. Get us our media credentials, and we'll get you the answers. We were already at the
That's a
game.
promise.
We were already at the game. We're just one step away. We're doing the post right now.
We
But
just need field access.
I will finish briefly with my Lions
Mhm.
recap because I know we spent a long time on it, and then we'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs because there's a lot to talk about there too. But the reality of the situation is Tampa Bay is without Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka next week. Todd Bowles said in his press conference this morning. So if the Lions are without Branch, Thomas Harper, the backup safety, was the highest graded player on defense with an 87 grade, minimum 10 snaps. I think that he will fill in just fine for one game. Branch was already coming in hurt, so he gets 2 weeks of mandated rest because the bye is right after Tampa Bay. So whether the Lions are 4-3 or 5-2 going into the bye, regardless, Branch and the rest of the secondary is going to get plenty of time to rest up and come out swinging in the second half of the season. But I don't think that you can't look at this Lions Chiefs game and think it emblematic of the rest of the season because the Lions straight up did not have 4 of their top 5 corners on the field. Patrick Mahomes punished them, rightfully so. If he didn't, I would be disappointed with Patrick Mahomes because it was such an easy game to win through the air, and Patrick Mahomes did everything right. That's the reason why I think he earned a 70 PFF grade, like below average, because it was just so day at the office pitch and catch. Mahomes did not have to make any spectacular throws to win that game. He didn't make any mistakes. They won. That's and it's more on the fact that the Lions just did not have the facilities to stop Mahomes with a backup secondary. You can't do it in the NFL. He will punish you. But if Branch does not get suspended, I still don't think it'll have a big impact. It's only one game. He'll come back after the bye, well rested. Lions will be just fine. No time to panic. The narrative should not change. The Lions are still a really good team.
Mm-hmm. With my recap, I kind of want to call an audible here because there's not much to recap. Like I've said, and like we saw, the way for the Chiefs to win is not commit penalties in the red zone, or excuse me, not commit costly penalties, which they didn't, or at least didn't get called for, and not commit turnovers in the red zone, let alone turnovers at all. That's what happened. That's what we called. That's what happened. So the audible that I kind of want to make is right now in the AFC West, you've got the Chargers and the Broncos at 4-2, followed by the Chiefs at 3-4. Are the Chargers the real deal, or are they scraping by?
So I think that they are going through a rough patch because they're down their top two tackles. They obviously lost Joe Alt to begin the season, and Slater went down. I think he'll be back, but the Chargers are suffering from being out two of their best offensive linemen and their two most important offensive linemen, their tackles. Give the Chargers time to get healthy. I think that they'll be all right, but it's certainly allowing the Chiefs room to chip back away. And that's why this win was so big for you guys. But I won't take your recap time. I want you to be able to talk about the Chiefs. But a win here really keeps pace with the Chargers, who are floundering, not because I don't think they're good, but because they are dealing with some injuries. The Chiefs had a clean injury report going into Detroit, going into the game against Detroit on Sunday night. The Chiefs are healthier than any other team in football.
Okay, and kind of talking about the Chargers one last time before I go back into the Chiefs is, yeah, I think the Chargers, when you look at just the scores of almost losing to the Dolphins, it's what's happening. This is a fraudulent team. But yeah, if both of the tackles are out, what week did you say that Slater would be back?
I remember it being sometime after like week 9 or 10. Keep in mind, they also just put both of their starting running backs on IR, so they're down to their third string running back. Amarian Hampton and Najee Harris were both down. So they're dealing with a lot of injuries, not just on the O-line, but in the skill positions as well. But I do believe Slater will be back. I'll get that for you
Okay.
in a second.
So that's going to be something to look for with the standings is the Chargers being good, but facing the injury bug is what can Justin Herbert do to keep that team afloat, especially if his tackles are out. But while you're looking up that, I'll recap the Chiefs real quick. Like I said, the penalties and the turnovers is definitely a story, but it just shows the discipline as well. Like something was different last night. This team was not groggy. This team was not half-assing it. That they were locked in, they were ready to go, and they looked like the Chiefs that the new Chiefs fans have come to expect, and old
Right.
Chiefs fans love seeing and have missed for a while. And I think I think we have a lot easier schedule going forward than we have these first 6 weeks, and we're getting Rashee Rice back. That is going to be so much bigger than people are realizing because as you and I saw at training camp this year, Rashee Rice is the best receiver on that field.
Easily.
100%. It doesn't matter what team he's facing or what sideline you're looking at. Rashee Rice is the best receiver on the field, unless it's maybe like with the exception of 2 or 3 guys. And so the Chiefs coming in back at home against the Raiders and then going on bye before facing Buffalo and then facing a whole lot of an easier schedule. They're not playing the Panthers every single week, but it's certainly a lot easier schedule. The Chiefs could very easily only lose 3 games the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Maybe not easily, but very realistically, only have 3 more losses the rest of the season.
Slight correction I want to alter. Rashawn Slater out for the year. Joe Alt.
Okay.
Joe Alt is coming back.
Okay.
He
Gotcha.
has not practiced yet, but I imagine he's a week or 2 out still. But
Gotcha. Okay.
he's coming. But yes, I agree with you. The return of Rice is so massive and perfectly timed. Because think about it this way, right? I know that the Chiefs are 2-1 in their last 3 games. That loss to the Jacksonville does hurt, as they are an AFC opponent. But they've scored 30 plus in each of their last 3 games, and they're humming offensively. The offensive line played great. The Lions had the lowest pressure percentage against Patrick Mahomes since 2022 on Sunday Night Football, and that's without Josh Simmons.
Wow.
So the offense is clicking. Whatever Andy Reid and Matt Nagy are doing to keep them prepped, it's working, and they are only going to get better with the addition of Rashid Rice, who, if what we saw in training camp and what we've seen with him in a Mahomes-led offense before, it's lights out. He's going to be a focal point, and he's going to excel in that focal point.
I agree, and being consistent is what's going to make what we know can happen.
Right.
They have to be consistent.
100%. And I think that the offense clicking can only do good things for Kansas City, because it's largely been the weakness of the Chiefs the last 2 seasons. Just haven't had a suffocating offense. This is the first time that I've seen the Chiefs truly put away a good opponent in the last 2 years. They haven't played like this. And so I was a little shocked at how back the Chiefs truly are. They are back.
Certainly.
But I didn't know if you had any other points on the Chiefs. I think that they played a complete game. Aside from special teams, Harrison Butker did miss a PAT and has struggled this season with kickoffs, with field goals. I mean, you could pin 2 of the Chiefs' current losses on Harrison Butker, the vast majority. Is that something to be concerned about as the season progresses? I want to touch on that really quickly.
Man, Harry's been kind of back and forth lately, obviously, but throughout his whole career, he's kind of had that. He's had a year where he really struggles with PATs, good on field goals, but really struggles with PATs. And then it goes 2 years of lights out kicking, including getting the Super Bowl record for longest field goal in Super Bowl history. So, I mean, to me, it's not a concern long term. But if I'm the Chiefs, I'm not doing anything this year. He has proven himself that we at least owe him the respect to not do anything this year, unless he just starts missing everything.
Right.
But I would not be surprised if the Chiefs work out a kicker for training camp next year and just see what happens.
Sure. Because you just mentioned consistency. One of the reasons the Chiefs have been so successful in 1-score games is because they can always count on their kicking game to come through at the very end. And if that's failing, that could be a serious issue for some of these close games the Chiefs tend to play in. But maybe it's just a midseason slump. He'll come back. He'll be fine. But we'll see.
Well, and the one thing that I do want to reiterate to Chiefs fans about Harrison Butker is he struggling this year? Yes. Will he get better this season? Maybe not. But he has earned the respect to at least stick it out this year. He owns the record for longest field goal in Super Bowl history. He is one of the most accurate and long-term kickers in Chiefs history, a franchise that holds the only kicker to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And you can argue that he is better than said guy. He has earned your respect. And I think any Chiefs fans that say that you need to cut him right now, I don't want you on board. Leave the bandwagon right now. I don't want you in our kingdom anymore.
Yeah, that was something that I noticed that stood out to me, is when he missed that extra point, he got loudly booed big time. Like, I'm sure that's not, hey, Chiefs fans, I'm sure that's not going to help him get his confidence back if you boo him after missing an extra point. I think he's earned your fandom's respect. He is quite literally one of the best kickers we have seen in our lifetime. So certainly would not
100%.
boo him at a home game after missing an extra point. But moving on to our fantasy football segment, this is going to be a little bit different this week, because the last 6 weeks or so, we have gone over Stardom and Situm, our fantasy football Tinder. And it's been really fun. We've enjoyed it. But the problem is we record these on Monday nights or Tuesday nights. So I don't quite have the full access. Injury reports don't come out till Wednesday. So I don't know if there's a defense that's going to be banged up that could produce a really good matchup. I don't know that. I don't have that information. Neither does Tyler. So we can't properly be detailed, precise, and informed with our fantasy analysis at that time in the week. However, what we can do is take the information that we got from last week and tell you guys the most impactful waiver wire pickups to make on Tuesday nights, because our episodes typically come out Tuesday afternoons. So who to pick up Tuesday afternoon ahead of the waiver deadline, which typically ends Wednesday in the early morning hours. So I have 4 players today that I want to highlight that you should target on the waiver wire and why. And this is how the segment's going to go forward. I think it appeals to a wider group of people. We want to make sure that we can help as many people as they can make their fantasy teams better. But the first player on this list is Chargers running back Kimani Vidal. We talked about the Chargers and their struggles, but one of their struggles does not include Vidal and his work that he's done. He scored 23 points last week with 138 total yards and 7 yards per carry. He also got 4 targets in the passing game. Omarion Hampton, their star rookie, is out on IR. Najee Harris, season-ending Achilles injury. Vidal is in line to get a bulk load of the work. If he's not already picked up, put in a waiver claim for him, especially if you're a high priority. He can be a very valuable player until Hampton gets back. Speaking of running backs that are expected to take over the lead role, Zonovan Bam Knight for the Arizona Cardinals is someone that I would look to, as he played in over 50% of the snaps for running backs. He got 11 carries, and he punched one in. Seemed like he was taking over the lead back in Arizona. Certainly worth a waiver wire pickup with how injured that room is as well. And for our third player, we're going back to the Chargers, to Oronde Gadsden, 6'5", 236. He plays tight end, and his snaps in the last 3 games have gone from 48, 54 to 75% of snaps for the Chargers. Last week, he had 8 targets, 7 catches for 68 yards. Tight end is a horrible position to evaluate this year in fantasy. This guy's worth taking a streamer on, especially with some of the injuries that the Chargers are dealing with in the tight end room. 22 years old, 6'5", super athletic, already emerging as a target that Herbert is enjoying throwing to. And then the final player is Isaiah Davis, the running back for the New York Jets. Braylon Allen is on injured reserve. He was their backup behind Breece Hall, and there's been a lot of rumors that Breece Hall could be on the move. The Jets are 0-5. Lots of teams are shopping for a running back. Jets want to load up for what is going to be a crucial draft because they're so horrible. Isaiah Davis could end up being the lead back. So he's more of a long-term stash and wait. But those 4 guys could really help you later on in your league take some games, especially if you're dealing with some major injuries or some poor performing players. Curious if you had any other players on your waiver wire that you saw.
I don't have any additional players, just kind of more additional arguments. So with Vidal and the who was the Chargers wide receiver? What was his name? I'm sorry.
He's a tight end, actually.
Tight
Oronde
end.
Gadsden.
So Gadsden and Vidal, I really like. With Vidal, I like Omar and Hampton's numbers, and then with Vidal coming in, he's picking up right where Hampton was leaving off. So I don't expect Vidal to get 23 points a game by any means, but Hampton's game log certainly included multiple games of 24 points, multiple games of over 85% of snap counts. And that's as a rookie. So if you bring in Vidal, if he gets the same workload that Hampton would be getting, I think you can expect very similar numbers as Hampton, and that's going to provide you a lot more consistency with what you can expect out of Vidal. With the tight end, kind of the same thing. Quentin Johnson's out, and that's really what's bringing his production numbers up to, I believe you said 75% this last week.
So yeah, 75% of snaps that he played in, which is great.
Yeah, and that's really what you want to look at if a player is going to get big number. If he's had big numbers, but he was only in like 40% of snaps, then he probably got a touchdown on those 40%, but you can't expect consistency there. If you're getting 75% of snaps, you're going to get consistent numbers. You're going to get decent consistent numbers as well. And my big thing with fantasy is I love consistently good over occasionally great. And I think with 75% of snap counts, you're gonna get consistently good. So those are my two guys. Is with the LA Chargers.
Yeah, certainly good guys to target, and I agree. Bam Knight is someone who only got 51% of the snaps, so it's going to take more effort from him to win more of those. And Isaiah Davis is still the backup to Breece Hall. That's more of a speculative move, but yeah, immediate impact. You're on the money.
But
Vidal and
but
Gadsden could really
the
jumpstart
Knight
your
was
squad.
getting the Knight was getting 51% of snaps with a fully healthy receiver. Now that Quentin Johnson is out, you've got to start looking to those other receivers. Tight end, of course, but you got to start looking to those other options for Justin Herbert to throw to.
That's true, and I don't know how long Johnston will be out, but he may not be back next week. So we will see if the tight ends, especially with how pass heavy that Chargers offense has been this year, Herbert's been slinging it. So don't sleep on Gadsden sliding into that tight end one role for the Chargers and starting to really produce.
The one thing I want to kind of touch on with, if we're going to add some players, you probably have to cut some players. So who would you cut? And for me, there are two names that I would cut. One is Darius Slayton. He's a guy that kind of had some upwards trends out of nowhere, but a lot of people picked Darius Slayton up from the Giants. Get him out of your lineup if you're gonna bring someone on the waiver wire. Another one is Tucker from the Raiders. He had a 24-point game. People stacked the waiver wire to get him on their team, myself included. And he's not been doing the production that he got out of that 24-point week. He's another person that I would cut. So if you're going to the waiver wire to get those Charger players, those are two names to look for to get off of your roster.
Right. And additionally, Chiefs fan, you can appreciate this. Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown could be dropped, especially Tyquan Thornton, because with the return of Rice, Worthy slides into the deep threat role, Rice slides into the primary threat role, and there's really no role for Thornton on this squad once Rice comes back. He's rostered.
At least not a good fantasy production role.
No, not at all. He's rostered currently in 30% of leagues. That should drop significantly with the return of Rice. Get Thornton out of your lineups.
Mm-hmm.
But that is all we have for the waiver wire winners segment. Cannot wait to keep bringing you guys that as we get closer to the fantasy playoff. We are already a third of the way through the season, so time is flying. But we have some must-watch games before we close out. Do you have three of those for us this week?
I do have a couple of the games. The first one, my number one of the week, is Colts at Chargers. I'm starting to kind of get behind the Daniel Jones wagon. I kind of called him out as a fraud a couple weeks ago. He's still doing well. So I think Colts versus Chargers, especially a banged up Chargers, this could be a possible upset alert. Upset being Colts over Chargers, but Colts at Chargers could certainly be a very good game, especially if they both make the playoffs. This could be a wild card matchup, perhaps down the line. Another game that I am looking at is, weirdly enough, Falcons and 49ers. It's another kind of banged up 49ers squad. The Falcons are doing really well. They're playing really well against the Buffalo Bills. I hope I'm not jinxing anything because we're recording as this game is progressing, but they were up pretty big at halftime. So the Falcons could very much be a sleeper team for the NFC South. And with the 49ers facing the Rams, again, this could be another possible NFC wildcard matchup down the line. A 5 seed versus a 4 seed, maybe a 6 seed versus a 3 seed. So possible playoff matchup there. And then the bias in me really wants to talk about the Chiefs and the Raiders. I don't want to talk about the Chiefs and the Raiders because I want to be unbiased. But man, it's Raider hate week. I cannot talk about the Chiefs and Raiders enough. Raider hate week, a rivalry that dates back to 1960 with the original AFL. These squads hate each other. And it's another matchup at Arrowhead Stadium. Always watch that rivalry.
And those games always tend to be close. I mean, even look back to last year when I think the Raiders were significantly worse. That game came down to a fumbled snap at the end. Then the Chiefs won it. So I expect the Chiefs to be played very close by their division rival. And I like those other matchups. Hopefully the Falcons can hold on. and make it a really interesting season and game next week. But very, very good selections. Looking forward to them next week. Looking forward to hopefully the Lions getting a win, as they have not lost back-to-back games since 2022. And that one kind of stung being in person, but we'll see. But that's all we have for you in this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out our on-location content later this week. And we will see you guys next week.
Appreciate you guys.